All right. Last year in Moncton, you got a lot of teammates and stuff on the card tonight, right? Is that one of the main reasons you wanted to come out here, support everyone?
Yeah, definitely that, and also being a part of all the different events that we did for the UFC as well. We went down to Boston Pizza and then did a couple other things as well.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you have a fight coming up too. Is that you don't mind breaking camp at this point or anything, right? It's still far enough out that you don't mind traveling around.
One of the benefits of having everyone here is also a lot of people to train with. So I took some time in between dropping the puck that I did on Thursday or the the Boston Pizza event. There's 24 hours in the day and there's plenty of time to train.
Yeah, and I mean, you're supposed to fight earlier this year. It gets pushed back. You're in Toronto. You get the opponent switches. Just everything. Has this been like a frustrating stage of your career right now?
Well, it's always like kind of frustrating to not necessarily frustrating. I just want some answers, obviously, in regards to setting a schedule and setting opponent and knowing what kind of skill set I need to learn. But I got to know I think at the beginning of October, so still plenty of time, and it doesn't matter whom I'm fighting. The results are going to be the same. I'm going to get my hand raised at home and excited to put on a show.
Yeah, is a fight with Antonio something you even want to consider again in the future, or after falling through a couple times you're over it?
Yeah, definitely. He's 11th in the world, and currently standing at lucky 13, and on the way to get up is fighting someone that's 11. And he's someone that I very much know how I want to fight, and the fight in my mind that I've visualized constantly. So that's going to have to be in the back burner because right now the focus is Eric Anders. He's a tough individual, but I'm going to show him the difference between chess and checkers.
When you watched that last fight that Anders was in with Thiago Silva, what was your reaction to that? I mean, that was pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, no, it was a great fight. Obviously took it on 6 days' notice, but I think with Eric, in many ways, he did the same thing that I did with Thiago Santos, but I did those about 2.5 years ago. So I've been able to learn from it. Where he's a very, he's athletic, explosive. He's very good in regards to reflexes. We also had that soccer kick where he was. Somewhat down potentially in the scorecards and threw the Hail Mary pass and knocked Tim Williams' head off into the bleachers. But with that being said, kind of going back to what I said and the idea difference between chess and checkers, I think he's a great fighter, but he's a very new fighter, and I'm gonna take him out to deep waters and kind of break him.
You don't seem like a person that dislikes anyone or whatever. I know you're a very positive guy and stuff, but you and Eric have had exchanges on Twitter and stuff and spoke. I mean, what's your personal stance on him, not just in terms of his ability, but him as a person?
No, he seems like a likable guy, and obviously there's a reason why he mentioned my name is because I'm ranked and more people know me than him, and he sees me as an opportunity to make a name for himself, and it's up to myself on game day to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's the plan. Many people have tried to beat me, and only 2 have been successful. I would argue only 1, but with that being said, I've also fought 7 of my 10 UFC fights against southpaws, so this is not something I haven't done before. So I'm really looking forward to kick, punch, and rinse and repeat come Toronto.
Speaking of Toronto, is with all the reschedules and whatnot, fights falling through, this kind of work out for the best? You get the fight close to home, or do you prefer to avoid those distractions?
Well, I think the best of both worlds, right? Because I love traveling, I love training. The fighter's journey is what actually drew me to mixed martial arts. I was a fan first, and then just jumped into a gym and never left. The last fight before this was in UFC Liverpool. The one before that, UFC Sydney. Really loved training, traveling, and the missus and I, and even my parents, who are retired and in some ways my groupies because they follow me everywhere I go. It's great to kind of spend those times afterwards because after it's all said and done, it's those memories and those experiences that inside the cage and out that I get to take with me forever.
You mentioned doing stuff outside the cage, Boston Pizza or whatever. You've also done the Invicta, Ring Card Boy stuff. You've got one of the more entertaining Twitter accounts out there. You've taken over the UFC one a few times. Are we going to see more of that? Maybe even go into broadcasting?
Yeah, well, I already have a podcast. It's called The Main Event, MANE, trademark included. Also own the trademark for Ring Boy, but it's neither here nor there. And we'll be setting up a calendar in the near future. So this could kind of be like an open call to other UFC fighters, because, you know, I'm not going to have a whole calendar just about yours truly. Even I know that would be narcissistic. But point being, open call, 11 other months. Whether it's flyweight to heavyweight, big is beautiful in mixed martial arts, and this is an open call for all UFC fighters that want to be a part of the Ring Boys calendar.
Perfect. And you're talking about the TUE situation, everything. You're trying to do something a little unprecedented there. Can you just open up about why you decided to go down that path and where you feel things stand right now?
Well, yeah, no. So kind of backtracking, this has been a process of 17 months. I've been working hand in hand with USADA. You know, they've been very helpful throughout the process, but I think in some ways it's an outdated process, especially considering the fact that I am a Canadian, and my doctor diagnosed and prescribed my medical condition, which is bilateral neuropathic pain, which essentially, you know, is nerve damage. And one of the ways that I can kind of, a layman's term of what to expect is every time I train a hit, I tend to, you know, the same reaction as hitting your funny bone, where it's like a constant stingers and there's burning sensations, and you know, there's a lot of just day in day out stuff that really affects me as a patient. And cannabis has been proven, both, you know, through the conversation with my doctor and my medical cannabis provider, Solus Health Network, in just a better result in pain management. And you know, a lot of this isn't necessarily about training in general. It's also my way of life and my quality of life after the fact, because us athletes have to carry that for the rest of the 24 hours in a day. So, you know, cannabis has been shown, you know, personally, to be a better alternative, not just in regards to its results, but also the results of the side effects of the drugs that I've had to take. You know, I mentioned the outdated aspect in regards to USADA, because they've pushed me in the direction of first-line drugs. They've already agreed that I have bilateral neuropathic pain, and I've shown that, but they want me to exhaust all other options, and that includes opioids, antidepressants, and other SSRIs. They literally make you do the opposite of what modern medicine does, in the sense of you have to do everything else that is first line, and then come back to what you already know is prescribed by your doctor and medical practitioner. You know, again, obviously safety is first, and I'm a huge believer in clean sport, and USADA, and very thankful for the UFC for teaming up with them, because again, I really appreciate what they do, and as I mentioned earlier, they've been helpful all the way through. I just think there's a reason why the CCES, the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sports, the Canadian subsidiary to USADA, lobbied against it, but because of USADA and the Japanese affiliate of USADA, I can't remember the acronym, they pushed against it because of the way they structure it. Like for instance, the US, they deem it as a Schedule I drug, which means it's labeled as the same as heroin. You know, regardless of what you think about cannabis, I think we can all agree that it's not as bad as heroin. And in an aspect of that ranking, that means they label it as no medical properties to it in any way, shape, or form. So that's why there's a need to have to exhaust all the other first-line medicines. And, you know, my doctor scratching his head when we've had to do this, because this is kind of, like I mentioned, the backwards way of modern medicine. You don't find what works for you and then go through all the other harsher aspects. And going into what the side effects are, for example, Lyrica, it makes you bloat. Well, me specifically, because this is a personal experience. Bloated, I added about 10, 12 pounds, and it just did more harm. Imagine being constantly bloated and getting punched in the stomach, constantly bloated, knee on belly. So again, as an athlete, it's not only the side effects of the drugs and the potential of all of the addictive properties in regards to opioids, and especially when you put it in contrast with the opioid crisis that's affecting Canada and the US, it just seems kind of backwards, and that's how I and my doctor feel.
Is it crazy at this point to think that Russell Regliati was 20 years ago, and now we're in 2018, and we're still kind of talking about this in sport?
Well, yes and no. It's been a long process, and I've actually been in contact with him and kind of let him know about what I'm in the process of doing, and he's been very supportive as well. And again, this is something that Canada, in many ways, has been in the forefront in sports, and obviously now with the nationwide legalization of cannabis. But with that legalization, it still shows that not everyone has access in Canada to cannabis, and that includes medical patients and medical athletes like myself.
So just for clarification, because from USADA's stance, you can use out of competition, right? That's not.
But that's misleading in regards to what out of competition is, because cannabis stays in your fat soluble,
right.
And there's a basically a window of time, which is about roughly 3 weeks, and moreover, we talked about my ring boy pursuit. That, before I was able to talk about this, was also part of what I'm trying to do, because women are unjustifiably targeted because of their body, because of the way the composition is. It stays in their fat cells even longer. So when you have what's called Jessica I or Cynthia, who have been flagged for cannabis, it's because, again, because of their body composition. Or even someone like Kevin Gastelum when he was at 185. Right. A little more to love him. There's a little more.
Sure. Okay, so that's basically the end goal here. So if your fight night test, if it came up with that, it would be a non-issue.
So yes, and moreover, because again, it kind of seems a little backwards, and the hardest part of training camp is leading up to a fight. Why would I stop? Why would I be forced to stop taking my medicine? And in addition to that, what I'm asking for is to take it all the way up to weigh-ins, go to sleep, compete the next day, then start recovering again the next day. So it completely removes any argument of inebriation or any type of altering aspect in my actual performance. And again, I'm only asking to be able to medicate all the way up to it because of what it entails to be a professional athlete, more specifically a professional mixed martial artist, where I have bilateral neuropathic pain in both my hands, and I use them every single day.
So when do you typically stop? Like, when's the process, like say for your last fight, when do you stop using, and what did you have to do to make sure it was out of your system?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's part of the process is being forced to do it about a month out. So that's the kind of unfortunate thing in it. But again, a huge believer in USADA, and they've been very, very helpful all the way through, and I'm a big believer in what they do. And as I resubmit it, I'm really thankful for their guidance throughout, and I'm looking forward to hopefully, kind of go in the right direction for me as an athlete and a patient.
When are you going to have an answer? Because obviously you have a fight
There's a 21 to 29 day period, and I'm basically I'm going to be resubmitting next week, and kind of taking it from there. In addition to the nerve damages the nerve tests that I've had, I've lined up even more to show that definitively that my nerve damage is degenerative, and there's a link in regards to just what's happening, my quality of life otherwise. But it's a process, and I'm really excited to no longer have to be in the shadows when I talk about it, and really thankful for, again, the UFC, who's been very helpful throughout, and USADA, again, huge believer in clean sport. I just feel that not only my medical practitioner and my doctor believe that cannabis works for me, and I'm looking forward to working with USADA in my specific case. And again, want to throw this out there, a huge believer in clean sport, and I'm looking forward to working with USADA in the process moving forward.
Have there been a lot of fighters and athletes that have reached out to you for more information?
Yes, and yes, there's been a couple, just in regards to the process of how one has to remove any type of intake of cannabis going forward.
Perfect. Thanks, man.